Tonight, what you see in front of you are 110 beginners. Over on the floor by the student store, we have our chamber orchestra. And we're going to take you on a little journey from where we began. The first time those instruments came home to where they are today. This first song needs no introduction. Instruments up. When you heard them at the mega concert, they were doing variations on that very popular theme, Cross Buns, which is of course how we start with our beginning orchestra. They've learned to take care of their instruments, they've learned how to use the bow, they've learned many things over the course of the last 3 months, and we're going to take you through all the things that they've learned. This next selection is Merrily Roll Along. One of the things that they had to do as beginners was learn how to play on a single string. That takes some coordination because the dimensions of these strings are so close to one another. It takes a lot of subtle maneuvering to play on only a single string. This piece features a string crossing as well as a lift, a new coordination. This is Merrily We Roll Along. We have a lot of different ways to make a sound on a string instrument. We have an Italian word called staccato, which means to have space between the notes. We have marcato, which means accented notes. And then we have a bowing called legato bow stroke. The legato bow stroke means that the knuckles on the right hand have to be relaxed enough to allow for a very smooth motion from the up and down bow. This next selection features not just new notes, but this new bow. As you're watching, feeling really proud of the hard work that these young people have done, you can see the different skill levels that they're exhibiting. You'll notice that their posture has improved over the last couple of months. You'll see that the scrolls are pointed in the right direction, their bow hands are better shaped, their bows stay parallel to the bridge, and then they also learn skills like this next feature called Waterfall, where they do a slur. They have to play multiple notes in one bowing. So now they're doing cross rhythms. Their right hand is in charge of one rhythm and speed, their left hand is in charge of a different one. So they're doing different reading notational skills at the same time. It takes a lot of coordination. It's really impressive that they're already doing so well. This is Waterfall. long ago, you'll see not just the two-note slurs, but also a new rhythm. There's a tie. So there's all these notational things that they have to decode, so that when they're reading music, they're not just reading note names, they're also reading these symbols, which mean very specific things on their instrument. So we have two-note slurs, we have ties, and we have lifts. You'll also see string crossings in almost the entire D major scale. This is long, long ago. Page 22 in the book out of 37 pages, and we spend at least a week on each of these pages, and we think about these skills as we get better and better at just navigating around the fingerboard of the instrument. This next piece in French folk song, you see the entire D major scale, so that means they know all the notes on the D and the A string. It also changes time signature, so they're feeling pulse, they're learning new rhythms. There's only 3 beats per measure, a new rhythmic division called the dotted half note, and then we also have 3-note slurs instead of 2-note slurs. This is French folk song. To hear the resonance of the sound, and again, we're really only finishing that second month of playing every day. The first several weeks of school was learning how to read notes, learning rhythms, learning basic sort of classroom norms, rehearsal techniques. What they are done in only 2 months is really incredible. I can't wait to see what they accomplish by their third concert when we have it in March, and our final concert in spring, where we feature our light show. These students are accelerating at a pace that we haven't seen. We're going to be unveiling a very special piece this evening that's never been done by the beginning orchestra. But on that journey, we have some more things to show you, which is a new thing called dynamics. Could everyone in the audience say forte? Forte. Could you say it louder? Forte. Forte. Yeah, good. That means to play with full force or to play loudly. Now say piano. Yeah, piano means to play softly. So if you go to Italy, sometimes you'll see parents like talking to their kids, piano, piano. To be just calmer and softer, you'll hear a huge change in dynamic volume. They're now dealing with all sorts of different variables in physics. The speed of the bow, the weight of the bow, the proximity to the bridge, the coefficient of friction changes every time we change the length of the string. So they're doing living science in front of you as they're doing different dynamics, as well as learning some new things like the 4th finger A. You'll see the violins and violas using their pinky, and the cellos will now be shifting to 2nd position, which means they're moving to a whole new place on their fingerboard. Still falling down after all these years. This is a new bridge. rhythm on their instruments are also working together. With kind of the motto of our classroom is that they're the reason the classroom is successful. They are the success. They're the ones that listen, they're the ones that bring their instruments home, the ones that practice, the ones that put in the effort every day. They're the reason that this all happens because they're willing and they're engaged. And you can see that from their discipline here on stage as they move their instruments up into playing position and then back down into rest position. They're using nonverbal communication, they're watching each other, they're paying attention to each other. I think that bodes well for their future driving skills as they notice everyone else on the road. These are young people who are working hard and who are developing skills beyond what you can capture on a test, but things that are applicable in the real world. And here in Baba Black Sheep, they're doing more living math. They're taking a pulse and they're dividing it into a smaller ratio. We go from quarter notes to 8 notes. We have to deal with multiple variables of those particular rhythms, and they have to come up in music all the time. So just like when they learned to count to 10, they didn't have to remember after a while what came after 1, they didn't have to remember what came after 2. When they learned their ABCs, they didn't have to think what comes after the letter C. At some point, they were able to read the cat in the hat, not sound it out. These students are now mastering all the basics of musical rhythm and notation so that any music that goes in front of them, they now have a life skill they can share with others. This is Baba Black Sheep. Next selection, German folk song, features the entire D major scale again, all the 8 notes, fortes and pianos, and first and second endings. So just a new way of mapping music. This was invented to save time back in the 1600s before we had printing presses, copy machines, and ways to share information that we do now. These were shortcuts, and so the students are learning kind of the history of how music has developed and how it applies to modern day society. This is German folk song. And we have one final selection before we shift over to the world of our chamber orchestra. This is Wolly, Wolly, Doodle, and basically it's every skill that they've learned so far this semester, all encapsulated in one piece of music. It has all the 8th notes, the quarter notes, the half notes, the lips, crossing strings, the entire D major scale, some shifting, some 4th finger E's and A's. This is Wolly, Wolly, Doodle.